Thanks for pulling that up, Chrissy. And yeah, again, the purpose is to sort of walk through high level concepts, and then we do have some specific examples of communications tools that I thought would be particularly interesting to you all, given the nature of the focus of Luca. So uh, first, let's talk about power. And no one says it better than President Ruther, that power is the ability of a labor union like the UAW to make the most powerful corporations in the world, like General Motors, say yes when they want to say no. And so, any disagreements there?
Mhm.
No, you're not allowed to disagree with President Ruther, so we'll move along. But um, it's really it, I think the core of power. When I think about my day-to-day work and when I think about the work we're doing across the union, I think about two things when it comes to power. One, we only get what we have the power to take. And I think the folks in North Carolina really clearly understood that, our team members down there. So we only get what we have the power to take. You don't get a damn cent that you're not ready to pry out of their hands. And all of our power comes from our members. And we just have to recognize those two truths as we're building campaigns. And I think that our folks at Daimler and Thomas Built Bus and Freightliner really accepted that they had to build. They were responsible for creating the power, and they were only going to get what they had the power to pry out of their hands. And so, that gets into, then, if that's where power comes from, why do we actually run the campaigns? And I think about three things that we're trying to do every time we're running a campaign. We want to inspire and activate UAW members. It's clear that our members want to participate in this sort of campaign. I think in a lot of the locals I get to work with, people have been sort of clamoring to do something different. They say, we see other unions doing this, we want to do it that way. And so by running a campaign, we both get to engage the folks in those locals, but other locals, I think, watch and say, I want that too. And I think one of the most exciting things about the Diamler campaign is not only what you all won down there, but the sort of wave of people coming out of that were saying, well, it wasn't just the big three strategy. There are concepts here that I can use at my local of 100 people, or I can use at my college of 1,100 people, or whatever. So we've been able to sort of really blow up the sort of the work that you've done is really sort of like held up the next round of activists. Two, we engage the members to build power to win big. All of our power comes from our members, and the entire purpose of running these campaigns is to show the boss that we understand that we have the power and to leverage that power as hard as we can. So we run the campaign to win. And then three, we want to show non-union workers and the public that there is a difference, the UAW difference, and this is how we're taking these wins and then feeding our organizing program to say this is what it means to be a UAW member and to fight a UAW campaign. So the next slide is sort of how then have we, coming out of the Daimler campaign, we wanted to be able to conceptualize the campaign that was run in a way that other locals could then take and adopt and think through their campaigns in a similar way. And it's really, we use this campaign mountain framework as a way to sort of create that concept. And it's a sort of easy way to visualize the 5 major phases of a campaign. And this isn't just for bargaining. This can also be applied to contract enforcement. This can be applied to legislative fights. This can be applied to winning a new organizing drive. But you sort of think through these 5 different phases. And when I build these, when I sit down with a local, when somebody calls us in and we're with the regional rep and the local and the department, who else, we always start with, all right, the peak of strength. We know what we think we know where we want to go. We think we know what we want to win. And so we work backwards on this calendar that says, what does it look like at the peak of strength? What are we doing? What are we fighting for? What is the thing that the employer or the politicians or whoever is our target is most worried that we're going to do? What does that look like? How do we visualize that? And then we sort of work backwards. So we go back to this foundation as we're building our calendars, and we say, all right, what's in the foundation to help get us there? We do a kickoff, and then the magic sauce is really in this escalation period where we're giving our, where we're asking members to participate in the campaign in sort of less, maybe less militant ways, maybe easier ways, maybe less scary ways for folks who have never done this before to participate in a campaign and feel like, all right, nothing bad happened to me, but we still haven't won. And so a way to sort of escalate them up. And then we get up to the peak of strength, where we sort of win the campaign, and then we have a resolution process that for bargaining really looks like how are we running through the base at ratification to make sure that we're doing as much as we can so that people have information, so they're making decisions based on information, not based on misinformation or people voting but being confused about what they're voting. So this is really just how we're sort of framing the campaign, and we'll get into sort of what each of these phases really look like. Are there initial questions, thoughts, concerns?
And Mike, can you speak to the idea that sometimes that peak of strength is the day that the contract expires, but sometimes we actually want to move that date, like in the example with Cornell?
Yeah, thank you. So at Daimler, I think they said, we are going to take our strike vote. We are going to hold the employer accountable to the day our contract expires. We aren't giving them 1 second outside of our contract. And and if you're looking at it, if you're building this campaign around a strike or strike date, that once your contract expires is when your prohibition on striking typically expires. And so they said, we're going to strike on the day of. And then they built the whole TikTok campaign around that. At Cornell, immediately after that, we went and met with the folks at Cornell, and they said, our contract expires at the absolute worst time for our members. It expires in the middle of summer. We're college employees, and a lot of our members are laid off. The students aren't, there's very few students on campus, very few classes going on. But historically, we've always expired there. So we've always bargained and had an agreement to vote on it that last day. And so we had a conversation about, is that, as strategically, is that what we want to do? And they said, no, we feel like we get beat every time because of that. And so we just had to work backwards. And what date do you think you have the most power? And they said, and I don't know if anyone saw this campaign play out publicly, but they said, the day students are moving in the fall. We feel like that's the day that we have the most power. And it takes a week. And over the course of that week, every single day, another 1,000 students move into campus. And they made the decision that they were going to tell the employer, we're going to start striking on the first day of move-in, knowing that every day was going to be 1,000 people harder for the boss to keep services going. And it was I think a really smart strategy that bound up the employer, and they ended up, the employer, I think, played chicken with them. They didn't really think they were going to strike. And the employer ended up eating a 15-day strike that really our members felt like they won because they had leveraged the timeline in their favor. So let's talk foundation. In foundation, we're doing a couple of things. The first one is ground rules. I can't say any better than Jules from our Cornell bargaining team did when he said that it was a core piece of their win was refusing to sign gag orders. For the first time ever, our team at Cornell said, we are not going to have gag orders. We're going to communicate with our members because that's where our power is. And we're going to communicate to the public because we believe that the public is going to support us. And they were not wrong. I think we were surprised by how angry the whole community was at Cornell. And I think over and over and over, we see that when we're communicating with the public, they're more likely than not going to support the workers in those engagements. And so the first thing we're doing is deciding to fight differently by not agreeing to ground rules. This model will not work if you agree to ground rule, not just any ground rules, but gag orders. If you agree to a blackout gag order ground rule, this model won't work because you can't engage your members, you can't communicate with your members under that model, and you can't move your members into these escalating actions. Second thing we're doing is surveying our members, and this is the flyer that went around at all of our Daimler sites, right? We had to figure out a bunch of things. This was 6 different locals in 3 different states, 7,500 members. So we had to do a bunch of things. We had to figure out what is it that they really wanted to fight for, right? So we asked them to rank a bunch of issues and say which is the most important, what's the least important, so that decisions could be made down the road about what do folks most want to see. Um, Second thing we wanted to do was update our list. We wanted to create a tool where folks could say, here's how you contact me with my phone and my email. And then third, we wanted them to opt into receiving blast messages. And this has become a pretty consistent thing as we develop campaigns um, around the union, is that we're trying to figure out how do we really quickly communicate to our members. And for almost every campaign we've worked on, they opt to build a text message system. And I will say at Daimler, by the end of the campaign, the last week when we were getting ready to go on strike, we could hit a button and communicate with something like 75% of the Daimler employees would automatically receive that update. And so for the Daimler folks on the phone, I don't know if any of you want to just chime in about how that played out on the floor, but I feel like that last week we were giving people updates when the boss was skipping out on our meetings or when the boss was sending out information. And I feel like it was critical to be able to communicate rapidly like that. Go ahead, Ben.
We talked about it a lot on the line, when we get updates, and it was the talk of the town. It was really hot, and production was running haywire at the end of the struggle. It was a shit show, but I thought we were going to go out. Everybody was ready to go out. There was definitely a serious peak in the way that the contract campaign went along.
Yeah, it was no joke, and the boss felt it, and a lot of that was just that we were able to communicate and run. We ran the table on our message. The boss really sat back, and by the time they started trying to communicate with our members, it was too little, too late, and folks were already sort of deep into our message. And our message really looked like this. This slide is the other thing we're doing during the foundation. We're taking that survey data, we're taking what we understand about our members, and we're identifying the core member demands. At Daimler, this is the members' demands sheet. So this were the top demands that we put on the table at the master bargaining. Is this all the demands we put on the table? No, we had hundreds of demands like every other bargaining, but it's really important to use a tool like this members' demands to do a couple of things. One, it reflects back to all those members that did the bargaining survey. A majority of our 7,500 folks did a bargaining survey. And so it reflects back to them, this is what you said you wanted. See, we're listening. Two, it signals to the employer what they have to do. And we went in on day one at the master table at Daimler and told them this is the list of stuff. If they don't check these boxes, it was going to be impossible for them to get an agreement. And so we signaled to the boss that this is what they have to work on. And then three, we're able to really clearly communicate to the public and to the press and to politicians what this is all about. It's not 400 different demands, and some of them are sort of legalese, and some of them are more important than others. It's really highlighting the stuff that has to get done. And so in every campaign, and as communicators, you may be asked, you may be brought in to help folks synthesize these lists or help develop these lists. But in every campaign, we're asking people to take all of the stuff you want to work on and try to synthesize it into a set of really clear demands. Then we're also on the backside of that. So I think we're trying to tell a story here. We want to tell a story about what this means to our members, what it is we need to win, and why. And then on the other side, we're saying, and here's why the boss can do it, right? The bosses have spent decades telling us that they can't afford these things, that our demands are outrageous, that by asking for these things, we are the bad guys. And instead, we want to get out in front of these campaigns early with our story about why we think we're not being unreasonable. And at Daimler, it looked like this. And, we told a story that they are super profitable. They make tons and tons of money, that inflation was going up, that our top rates were not going up as fast, and that meant workers were falling behind. And it was, I think I really started to understand the power of this slide when we were out at all these practice pickets and rallies, and I would ask someone who wasn't involved in bargaining, who wasn't a committee person, wasn't a steward, what about, you've told me why you're out here, why you're standing here on the side of the road holding your sign, but Are you worried about Daimler or worried that they're going to pack up and leave? And most folks would say, oh, hell no. This is how much money they've made. This is the raise. They gave their CEO a 104% raise. People were repeating these facts back to us. And that's when I really felt like I understood just how powerful it was to be able to inoculate our members and put out this message that they can absolutely afford it. It's just about whether or not we're willing to hold them to it. So go ahead, next slide. And then, you know, the next, leftover money. I see Ben put in the chat that we had a whole video about leftover money. The boss came out and said, we have all this leftover money and we're going to give it to our shareholders. And we made a pretty compelling video that also reiterated over and over, here's what we want and why, here's why you can afford it. So the next phase of Campaign Mountain is then the kickoff. And if folks haven't had a chance to watch the video yet, go to the YouTube channel and watch the Diamler campaign kickoff. It was an amazing labor event. I think in my 20 years in the movement, the most amazing campaign event I've ever been to. But really pay attention as communicators to the three things that we were doing. We were talking about that we're doing business differently. We are not doing blackout bargaining. We're going to communicate with the members, and we're going to expect them to step up and fight if they want to win big. We walked through the members' demands point by point on what it meant to our members and why. And we walked through the story of Daimler. We walked through why they could afford it and why it was the leftover money belonged to our members and not to the shareholders. And so in every campaign is going to be different, but we're trying to figure out how do you, based on where your members are and where you're trying to go, roll out to your members that you're doing things differently. Here's what we're fighting for, and here's why we think we can win it.
This is a formula we have started to repeat. We used this exact formula this past fall in Chattanooga as the Volkswagen workers began to bargain their contract. We brought, about 400 people together. We had members speaking. We had community allies. The firefighters union is fighting as well with Volkswagen, and we marched them through the members' demands, why the company can afford it, and people were actually stealing the punchlines from President Fain and VP Browning because they had internalized the dollar amounts, the profits, etc. And they were so they were ready for a fight.
So after the kickoff, we immediately moved into a series of escalations at Daimler. And at Daimler, again, I think folks were already pretty agitated. There was already a lot of groundwork organizing that had been done, and we had a really limited amount of time. I think we had 23 days from opening the contract to when we were supposed to begin striking. And so we came up with a plan with the local leaders and with the departments that were in the region that were involved to say each of the locals is going to adopt a day of the week. And that's going to be the day that they're going to show to Daimler, right? Our whole escalation plan was to show Daimler that it's going to happen. There's no point in playing chicken because these folks are ready to walk over these core issues. And so, Mount Holly, I think, had Monday, and TBB had Tuesday, and every one of the locals picked a day of the week. And for the rest of the campaign, they rallied out in front of the building or at their local hall on that day to show Daimler. And we wanted to see those things grow in size over the campaign. So that was the sort of core concept going into the campaign on how we were going to escalate folks. From there, we also sort of had to figure out how do we more broadly what we call break out the jumper cables, which is really about bringing the bargaining committee message to the shop floor, agitating folks, having them take action, and then taking the members' stories and voices and bringing it back into the bargaining room. And so, that looked like sort of what it sort of turned into on the floor is people were making their own shirts, people were having their own events. There was this sort of weekly big planned event as part of the big master campaign, but each local then was scheduling a bunch of other activities within the plant to show the boss that they're absolutely going to take action. I think in Cleveland, at one point, one of the bosses said, you can't have that union material in here. And they went and put it everywhere. They put it on all the trucks. They put it everywhere. At one of the plants in Gastonia, The members were meeting in the parking lot before first shift and marching into work together, chanting. They'd work their shift, and then at the end of shift, they'd get together and they'd march out. They had all these chants that they had written. So it was a way to, like, and we were sort of feeding that energy by saying, here's what the boss thinks of you. They still are not offering you profit share. They're still not eliminating the wage tier for the bus folks. They're still not doing the things that you're demanding. And then on the backside, we wanted to bring members into the room. The boss wants the bargaining to be a very sterile environment where it's professionals sitting down, talking about numbers and being counting. We didn't want to let them run the table that way. And so, as part of the big campaign story here, folks that worked at the bus plant have traditionally made 20% less than the folks that worked at this truck assembly plants. And during this campaign, it was decided that is a tier that we can no longer accept. There's no reason for it. And we had a big fight. It was one of the last things that we were able to win, was the phasing out of that tier. And during the campaign, we found several members of our TBB local who were living in their cars, living in destitute poverty in these, dilapidated apartments. And we invited them to come to bargaining, meet with our team, and then come and meet with management and tell them that story. Because we wanted to humanize the conversation that we were having as not just dollars and cents, but as this is the real impact on people's lives. We also wanted to show the boss, if we strike and a camera shows up at TBB, it's not going to be us having a bean counter argument. It's going to be us standing back and letting our members step forward and say, here's what it means for me. I'm pregnant and I live in my car with my partner, and we both are full-time employees at the plant that builds 40% of buses in the nation. It was incredibly powerful. I do not believe we would have won this campaign without putting workers' stories up front. I think that anything less than that would have been fighting on the boss's terms, which is, really this very sterile environment. And that's why they love blackout bargaining, and that's why they loathe when we take that out of their pocket.
The other thing that I'll say is that when you're doing these bargaining updates, and you're posting them on your website, the community and the press can follow along. And when management slips up, it's going to become part of the story. So at Cornell, the workers are taking things very seriously. This is their livelihood. This is their lives and their futures. And at some point, the HR director burst out laughing, and was sort of laughing as she left the room. And the folks wrote that into the bargaining update and posted that. And not only did it piss off all the members, like, what the hell, but it worked itself into the story, and it just exacerbated this story, this narrative that we framed, which was Cornell is sitting on a $10 billion endowment and they can't pay their workers a living wage. And they're haughty and they're elite and they're obnoxious. And here's an example. They're laughing at us in bargaining. So telling that story and getting it out into the public helps frame out the different sides and how out of touch and greedy the management can be.
I'll also say another good example of the bargaining updates. Not only is the public and our members going to read it, the boss is going to read it. At Daimler, the chief negotiator didn't show up for an entire day towards the end of bargaining. I think he was upstairs on the phone with Germany, trying to figure out the next step and the next counter. But an entire day passed, and he didn't show up to bargaining. And our team was not going to let him get away with that. And so they put into the update, here's what we put on the table. Here's where it's so far apart. And the chief negotiator for all of Daimler didn't show up to work today. 8 hours bad time. They made a joke out of it. And we sent it out. And the next day in the elevator, he was definitely there first thing in the morning. And he said something to one of our committee members when he got off the elevator, like, yeah, I saw your update. 8 hours bad time, nice touch. So it totally got under their skin and I think pushed him to do stuff that he wasn't going to do. So we should just remember that I'm not afraid of the boss learning about our bargaining updates, I want them to see them. I want our members to see them. I want everyone in that building to see it. And there's nothing to be afraid of there. And then we get to the peak of power at Daimler. Again, anyone that watched that update or watched this campaign play out knows about the TikTok MFer. And we were clear that at the expiration of this campaign, at the expiration of that contract, there was going to be a strike or a settlement. And we even went so far as to schedule a rally the following morning. And we said to Daimler, that rally the next day, we're either going to be out on strike and it's going to be a press conference where we're talking to the press about why we're on strike, or it's going to be an event where we're going to celebrate the settlement. Was definitely happening. So the whole campaign sort of led up to this place where politicians are calling Daimler. The press is writing about Daimler. We had all these unfair labor practices in. Our members were ready to go on strike. And under this model, the last day of bargaining, we still had a ton of stuff on the table because the boss had been saying no to profit share, and they'd been saying no to COLA and no to eliminating the tiers for the folks that work in the buses. But that was okay because we weren't going to get them to move by reducing what we were demanding. We were going to get them to move by creating more and more power. And then when they started moving the last sort of moments before the strike was supposed to start, all of a sudden everything started coming into play. It would have been good to have more time to like work out the details, but we were clear a deadline is a deadline. It's going to happen. And this picture was the Facebook Live that we had up, where I think we had several thousand, I don't know, Chrissy, 2,000 people sitting on Facebook Live waiting for the bargaining committee to announce either that we reached an agreement or that we were going on strike. And the last pass we gave the employer that had the final settlement details in it, the employer received it, and there was something in there they disagreed with. It said, I don't know, 28, and they said, we've only agreed to 26 or whatever the thing was. And Sean said, I've got thousands of people sitting on Facebook waiting for the strike to start. You want to get into a fight over this, whatever this little time. He pushed away from the table and the boss took out his pen and signed it, and they were all defeated and beaten. But it was because I think that our Daimler folks really created a real deadline and built up to it. And there was no doubt it was going to happen. I think we still have people who are mad at us that the strike didn't happen because they were so ready to go. But that's the peak of strength, and that's what we want to build. And we only build it by raising expectations and having the fight. And then I've got some videos in here, Chrissy. I don't know if you wanted to play them or you wanted to have conversation, but I've got this video and I think this one is of the kickoff. It really frames the sort of three things we're trying to do there.
This membership has already voted, and 96% of you said you're ready to take action. And in another change from the past, one more change from the past, we're going to be updating you regularly about what's happening in bargaining. The days of our top leadership going behind closed doors to hammer out a deal are over. So your national negotiators are going to be sending out regular bargaining updates so you can hear firsthand what the company says about you, what these executives think you're worth. If we want to fight and we want to win like never before, we need to energize, inform, and organize our members like never before. Bargaining isn't a one-person show. Those days are gone. And gone with them is the false belief that union contracts are won just solely by one person or the bargaining team. They're not. They're won by the members. These contract fights are won by all of us organizing together, collectively, around the issues that unite us, demanding what we are owed. They're won by a united working class that's ready to shut shit down if we have to. So I want to take a minute. I just want to take a minute and give you the very first bargaining update from the National Negotiating Team. Over the last 2 months, we circulated a bargaining survey that was completed by thousands of Diamler workers. We put together our demands, your demands, based off of your feedback. And this morning, we gave Daimler the most audacious and ambitious list of proposals they've seen in decades. And here's a sampling of the members' demands at Daimler Truck. No concessions. We're done going backwards. You know, a lot of times you hear bargaining described as a give and take. This membership is done giving. We are here to take. So your committee today, your negotiators, told management to save themselves the trouble and instead focus on how Daimler can improve lives of the workers and not roll back progress that's already been made.
And so, you know, again, on that, if you were to watch that whole clip, there you were able to hear some of that. I think the first piece, we're doing things differently. We're going to give you updates. We're announcing that. Second, you heard part of the bargaining, the members' demands, where we're walking through, here is what we're demanding and why. And if you listen to the full speech, you'd hear Sean also walk through the entirety of the our case as to why Daimler could afford it, which ended up being entirely true. They agreed to this record contract, and they continue to be a very profitable company, despite what they would make you believe that by fighting, we're going to put them out of business and they're going to shut it down. This next one is, do you want to do the next one too, Chrissy?
Sure. Yeah.
I think is just an important and powerful reminder about how running a strong campaign, not only do we win a great contract, we change the union that runs it. And so the locals here are in right to work in the South, and they do not have compulsory membership. And so every sign up is something that we have to, take very seriously about people who have opted to join the union. This is Eddie, who's a longtime employee at the bus company, talking about what this campaign meant to him.
I'm Eddie Laughlin. I'm a proud member of the UAW, and I've been a member for about 30 days now. I work at Thomas Bus. I'm a team leader. I've been there for 37 years. Got really excited about what all was going on. Number of people that was actually backing it this time. It wasn't just Thomas Bus standing by themselves. I really didn't see that they really stood a chance on gaining much because so few employees. But when you look at 7,000 people versus 150, then yeah, that's a big gain. So I signed a card and joined up. Now would be the time for everybody to join. I was watching the live stream at home last night. When it was over, I sent it out to quite a few people that I work with, and some of them union, some of them non-union, to let them know what was going on, because it excited me. So I definitely support this contract because it's a win all the way around for Thomas Bus. I don't think they could really ask for any more than what they got.
So again, here's a 37-year employee who had chosen to never be a member of this union, who, because of the way that they, his coworkers engaged him, because of the fight that they had, said, this is the union I want to be a part of, signed up, and to this day continues to be a member, is my understanding. And then last, this was at the victory rally the morning after we TA'd the agreement. And this is former President Corey Hill at 3520, I think, doing a really good job about bringing people back to what this campaign was about. As I said earlier, we want to run through the base and really hold up, this is what we were fighting for, and I think he does a really great job here.
Hello, UAW family. We're here gathered at UAW Local 3520 today for a great day of celebration. When we start out, the message has been clear. Right here, we have made it loud and clear to these corporations where we stand as a UAW. We are tired of these companies taking advantage of us, our workers, our families, and our communities. When we said we would be silent no more, we echoed the walls. When we said we would put up with it no more, we went out and picketed. When we said we would not take any concessions, that's exactly what we did, and we brought back a damn good contract. Last night, the bargaining committee extracted that last bit from that table, extracted what they could. You know, they worked tirelessly up into the hours, even after they made the announcement. They was bringing back, signing agreements, doing the things and getting the paperwork established. You know, we will soon be getting in front of you the details of what's going on. But understand, you just got a piece of the highlights. We extracted from this company hand over fist in every area as possible. We made improvements on everything that you put forth. And you know why we did that? Because you said that you would stand strong as an organization, as membership, and would not put up with it. It was your demands you was taking to the picket line. It was your demands that said the UAW will be on strike if this company did not come to the table. Listen, it was your demands that said we wanted COLA, right? It's in the contract. They said they wouldn't give it to you. Guess what? You took it. You said what? You wanted job security. We secured our security here at Cleveland, changing no language, improving all the way across the board, and extracting from this company the respect that we need in our communities and your family. You know that you got a future with the UAW in Cleveland, Mount Holly, Gastonia, Thomasville Bus, all the 6 locations in the PDCs in Memphis and Atlanta. You said you wanted fair pay. You know what we did? We went after profit sharing. They said they wouldn't give it to us. Guess what? It's in your contract. And whenever they said we won't give equal pay, you know what? Across the board at the end of this contract, that's exactly what we took. Equal pay will start immediately. Every job in the industry, as far as there will start being moves immediately along with these cost of living allowances. Immediately. Along with the profit sharing. All that stuff will calculate up to where it will put money into this community and your family's pockets. When we said we'll keep jobs in America, that's exactly what we're doing. We set an example for the entire South. I hope Mercedes and Tuscaloosa was paying attention to what we're doing. When we talk about job security, we talk about respect. We talk about dignity. And you know what it is? It's the dignity of the worker, not the corporate executives that don't get their hands dirty, okay? When they said they wouldn't give us profit sharing, guess what? We took our seat at the table. Whenever they divvy it up, you know who's there now? It's the workers. Today is a historical day. Today, we have walked in a place that we have never been. You know how we got there? It's the membership was united. The membership displayed to every corporation. You know what? If you won't give us our share, we're here to take it.
And so again, you can hear Corey there reiterating, here is our demand, you took it. And you know, really bringing people back to all the things that they were able to win throughout the sort of ratification process. We put out some more materials and other videos to help reinforce, here's what is in the contract, here's what we were fighting for. So that folks sort of had some of that going into the rollout meetings, the ratification process. So that's sort of what I prepared, sort of broad strokes. I know I didn't want to just regurgitate all the stuff that's in the case study. Take a look at that case study. Feel free to reach out to staff with questions about sort of how would this play out. But again, thank you for your time tonight. And thank you for the 5287, 3520, all the folks that really did the work to win that contract and bring that one home. I see a bunch of your face on the phone, so congratulations and thank you. From as I've traveled around the country, the story of what you were able to win is just so inspiring to other folks who are concerned that they can't pull it off, and over they are. And it's literally your handbook is the playbook that we're using. Let me stop there. I'll turn back over to Chrissy and the folks at Luca here.
Yeah, so thank you again, Mike. And what I want folks to take away is that at each stage of the campaign mountain that we talked about, the communications department has tools to help locals. We have new and they're mostly free. So if you are creating a bargaining survey and you know, rather than going down the rabbit hole with SurveyMonkey or some other tool, we have a free tool that we can collect. We can help you collect the data, get your member cell phone and email addresses, and get those member surveys so that you can create your members' demands. We can help you with create a website, create a bargaining survey, a bargaining update section of your solid web website. We can get you hooked up with email and text messaging tools. We will get you the posters that you saw Corey, President Hill holding up. We can help you with press in cases with in the Lehigh Valley, the BMW PDC, and then also in Cornell. We worked with the workers to craft op-eds that we then placed in the local papers. And the headline was something like, you know, we don't want to go on strike, but we're ready to do so to win a fair contract. And it laid out a lot of what Mike was just explaining, right? The case for what we're demanding is completely reasonable. The company can afford it. And our community needs a good contract because they are making record profits, and the money should go to the workers who make that profit. So all throughout the process, the communications department is here to support you. And as Luca members, as local communicators, we're able to work with you to support you in whatever you're needing. We've got a few of our social media folks from our department on the webinar. We're able to amplify what you're doing. All of those rallies that Mike referenced, people would take pictures, they'd share them with us, and then our team would amplify that on the UAW social media account, get a lot of attention, spread the word, and the company's watching, the press is watching, other UAW members are watching. So it all fits together. So I just want to say thank you again to the Daimler folks in North Carolina. What an honor to work with you and help you use your energy to amplify your energy to win just an amazing contract. So I'll stop here and we'll sort of open it up for comments, feedback, and questions.
Tony has his hand up.
Yeah, I would just like to ask, with all the information that you guys are collecting and everything that goes on at each of these contract negotiations, to help feedback the information that how politics affects bargaining to our membership, to help us show them which way they really need to be voting, because a lot of times that information doesn't get fed back, or if it comes from, depending on who it comes from, as to how it's taken.
Mm-hmm. And Tony, are you thinking about in North Carolina? I know toward the end, is it Josh Stein? He retweeted a congratulatory tweet to show, like he was with the workers. In some cases, I know in Cornell, the mayor of Ithaca came to the picket line. I think in the Diamler example, we didn't have politicians walking the practice picket lines, the rallies with us, but I think we can create those moments where we elected officials can show which side they're on, and then we can connect those dots for members to say, when we were in a fight, who stood with us versus standing with the company.
Right. That, and I think I remember hearing that, there was a call from DC to the people at Daimler, to help them persuade, to take the contract that we was asking for. So that information needs to be put out there too. No matter where from the local people all the way up to the president, it matters who we do get elected and what they've done to help us get the contract that we deserve.
Mm-hmm. I'd be curious to know. I mean, we just went through a presidential election this year. How did it land with members to hear that members of the Biden administration had helped you win your contract? How did that land?
They didn't really get much of that information. Most of them are still pro-Trump.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, Josh Stein and Roy Cooper really didn't back us before the contract expiration. There was a very telling story in the New York Times that Democrats try to navigate a looming strike in a swing state. It discloses, that the core base for the Democrats in North Carolina is, like attracting business to invest out of state, kind of the same as the Republicans. They didn't really, as I understand it, Stein didn't really want to be seen with us. It might not be good for his, his business interests in the state.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. It wasn't until until the deal was done that he chimed in. So
yeah, and they said, "Well, thank God they didn't go on strike. That could have caused us really big problems."
Yeah.
I have a question. One of the things that was talked about is how inspiring our struggle was to non-union workers too in this whole area, and that it was really a lightning rod and a source of hope for people. And I was involved in something during our contract struggle. There was kind of a coalition effort with Corey was involved in it, and some people from the Southern Workers Assembly. We went and leafleted the Gaffney, South Carolina DT&A plant. That's like 1,400 workers at that facility that make chassis for Thomasville buses where I work. The second time that we went, I was down there the first time. The second time, something like 90 workers gave their contact information, and all those workers were watching the videos, following the updates, and were fired up about it. As I understand it, Georgetta Paulin, was helping those workers organize for UAW. But I haven't heard a whole lot from down there recently, and I'd like to know, what we need to get them onto our UAW at DT&A team, and I would like to know what the internationals can do to help. That's a really strategic plan, and they're our brothers and sisters, and they need to be in the union with us.
Can I jump in there? Yeah, I remember talking to folks who were going down to Gaffney. Not only Gaffney, I think all the PDCs were also a major source of leverage during the Daimler campaign. I think our analysis was that, as the bus company and the PDCs were really a place where we had a lot of power, and most of the PDCs nationally for Daimler are non-union. I think at that time we also were in the middle of the Volkswagen campaign, the Mercedes campaign, and the BMW campaign, major engagements down south. That as robust as our organizing department is, I think that there was a limited amount of resources outside of the region that were being put on that. It's my understanding now that there is some additional resources being put on some of these campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak specifically to which locations yet, but I know that they do have some folks working on some of these residuals within these companies.
I think the research team has been engaged in sort of looking at and like sort of sourcing and looking at the role of PDCs, and I think that they are starting to look at the different PDC non-union PDC shops in the Daimler world, and are looking to start conversations with those workers. And I think it'll be important for our key locals there and members there to play a role in talking about the union difference. So more to come. Any other questions?
I think it would be nice if UAW could send an organizer into Gaffney and really set up.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
take.
yeah.
Because that plant has got 1,400 workers, and that's in upstate South Carolina. I mean, that's down the road from BMW. That's down the road from that brand new Oshkosh plant that's making the mail trucks. You know, that's a key bastion of heavy industry that needs to be broached. And they're like our brothers and sisters down the line. They make the chassis. They get fed into our line to make the buses. Thank you.
Appreciate that, brother.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna touch on too. Yeah, we need some organizers down here. We got Toyota over here in Liberty, and a lot of them trying to come into South Carolina, the battery plants, and they're coming. And so if we could get some help, I know Jobs with Justice and Southern Workers, they're about assisting the UAW, but it's we they're calling here to the local left and right, and I'm taking information, but I'm not really getting any feedback. So yeah, we could get some help down here. It'd be great because they're moving here, they're coming here because they're going to South Carolina, and they're coming here, and we got to stay ahead of it. We got some people trained up down here, so I'd love to assist in any way.
Mike and I will definitely share that feedback with both the organizing department and the region. Sort of combination of looking at how the UAW is gonna spend its resources. So thank you.
All right. Yep. Any other questions, comments? Okay, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of their schedule to join us, and appreciate you being a part of this webinar. I'd like to thank both Mike and Chrissy for presenting. We will have this video available for reference, as well as, again, in the chat, we do have the case study link in there for those that want to download the case study. Appreciate your time and effort, everybody, and have a great evening. Take care.